Hey guys, my name is James and I'm doing an interview for my friend Poonam, and it is about culture and upbringing, and so I wanted to share this video with you guys and help her out with her project. And I also wanted to post this up on my YouTube just to get a better idea of what it was like growing up in America, coming from a third world country. So let's go ahead with the interview here. Well, to be honest with you, I was born in the Philippines when I turned 5, I immigrated over to Chicago, where I lived in the north side of Chicago in a very Hispanic-centric neighborhood. So there were a lot of like Mexicans, Puerto Ricans, Colombians, I think there was like Dominicans, and so I kind of grew up around their culture. Whenever I went to like my friend's house, I had their food. And like kind of observed the way like their parents treated their kids, and to be honest with you, it was really not that much different from a Filipino upbringing and a Filipino culture. We were definitely not spoiled. We were definitely disciplined very much. If we were acting stupid, and then our parents would tell us, like, would scold us. So it was kind of nice, because even though like they weren't Filipino, we kind of still share the same culture inside our home. So my mom treated me almost the same way as my friends treated their kids, or my friends' parents treated them, and vice versa. Actually, it's kind of cool, because I remember going to my friend's house, and I was like pretty much a second son to them, and they treated me just like their kid. It's pretty awesome. They would feed me. If I needed a place to stay, they would like, oh, you come over our house, and have dinner and stuff like that. So it's pretty nice, and it's kind of weird, because like you come from a third world country and you go to America, which I guess like if you're gonna stereotype America, it's gonna be like white people. So but here I am in America finally, and all around me are like Hispanic cultures. So it was kind of different, when you stereotype versus like the reality. So and I also went to the same school as these guys. So that's how I met them. I met through all my friends, through my classes when I was little, and through them I met their parents and I met their family. So it was at the time I didn't think much of it, but it's very similar looking back at it now. Well, making friends, like I said, was relatively easy. I think back then I was more shy than I am now. I'm actually not that shy anymore, but back then I was definitely more shy, but I made friends through similar interests, and good thing all my friends, or most of my friends back then, had the same interests as I did. Most of it had to do with me playing video games. We were into art, and our parents talking. And it's kind of weird, because I remember, like, if I had good grades, I was friends with you because you had good grades. It's an Asian thing probably. And my mom would always want to meet their mom, their dad, kind of like to see how they were raised, stuff like that. And so I guess it would be like, oh, your friend has good grades, so their parents must be doing something right, so I want to meet their parents, maybe like get something out of them, something like that. So my family when I was younger was primarily composed of my mother and my dad, until I was about in my teens, and they separated. So that's pretty much I'm the only child, so that's kind of what my family was like when I was little and growing up. And emphasized culture in my family would be Filipino culture. I am Filipino Chinese, but mostly Filipino. My household is Filipino. We spoke Filipino at home, and I spoke English at school. My mom was very adamant that I spoke Filipino, or Tagalog, as you would say, at home, because I would speak English at school. So being Filipino, she wanted me to speak my native language, and so that therefore I can be bilingual. And thank goodness she did that, because I can now understand both Tagalog and English at the same time. Well, there's definitely a bias towards smart kids. I feel like smart kids always get the better attention just because they're doing great in class. They make the teacher look good because we're excelling in their classroom. But there was never really a moment where I can be like, wow, they're just treating the not as smart kids not as good, not as well. I do remember my 8th grade teacher in public school, in middle school, that he pretty much like created a dream team for him. Like, I remember like 3 of the 5 of us won like honorable mentions in the history fair. So we like teamed up. He made like the 2 other people, like 2 groups, join the one group that did the best and like wanted to make our project better for state competition. So he like definitely like spent some time aside from his normal like schedule to like meet with us, talk to us. So he had his own agenda, of course, and he wanted to display how good of a teacher he was through us. And that's kind of, I feel like, how we get special treatment, at least in school, but nothing very obvious where like I would get like extra time off recess or anything like that, and the bad kid would not. Nothing really super discriminatory. Teachers' expectations, there was definitely like a group of like 10-14 guys or kids in class that did much better than the rest of the class. And I feel like the teachers there at the time would group us together and kind of like focus us on more and kind of like tell us, talk to us more about our futures and etc. But like I said, nothing really major, discriminatory that we were smarter than the other kids. I feel like, all the kids were my friends. It's just that, the smart kids were the ones that were kind of, essential to the funding of the school. So, nothing really super obvious, at least not at the time, or I can't remember. Yeah, being an only child, you want to look up to, adults for inspiration. When I was younger, I wasn't really into sports or anything like that. I knew like Michael Jordan, living in Chicago, was like the superstar, and thank goodness I lived in the same city as he did. But if anything, there was not really a like one true celebrity or any kind of like scholar that was like, hey, I want to be just like that person. I do remember watching a lot of movies and cartoons when I was young, because since I was an only child, I was kind of like stuck at home all the time because my mom was like super protective. So she like got me video games, she got me TV, movies. There wasn't really any one specific for role models, but I just wanted to succeed. And I think looking back at it now, role models for me back in the day, I would say my mom, because my mom was like my mom is a hard worker. She definitely made it possible for her to take care of me and herself, and she stands her ground. She definitely like doesn't take any BS from anyone. So she would be primarily my primary role model, or my hero, if you even say. She does lead a great example for me. But back then, I think like if I was gonna say like, oh, I really like that guy, it would probably be like Arnold Schwarzenegger, because I saw him in a lot of movies and he was always like the super buff like actor that would like save the day. So and it was a time of like the 80s and where he would have a lot of movies out, so I thought that was pretty cool. And of course the Ninja Turtles, they were my dream team. They were pretty awesome. Fight crime and be awesome at the same time. Living in a multicultural city, in like the deep urban city, like there was not really any like super racism that I encountered. There wasn't any like true discrimination that I encountered. It was more so just like joking around about other cultures. I remember like terms like Indian giver, like beaner, stuff like that. Like those like slang terms that we use in derogatory terms towards other cultures and, you know, ethnicities. But these are like kids picking on other kids. You know, I've been called chink a lot when I was little, just because of my eyes. Clearly, you know, kids are full of hate and they're very ignorant that, you know, about these things. But I think back in the day as kids, we kind of just call each other's names just because we want to call each other's names, you know. But there wasn't really like super hatred, anything towards that. No, and you know, I'm very fortunate that I've never received any kind of like hardcore racism, you know, or discrimination or prejudice. So I guess that's kind of one of the benefits of living in the city. Like it's very multicultural, and I'm glad that I met the people I met, and I live in the neighborhood I lived in, and I never really experienced a hardcore like racism like that. Is there white privilege? I mean, we have this thing called affirmative action, and I think that's like minority privilege, where just because I'm not white, I get first dibs on a job or anything like that. That's reverse racism, in my opinion. But I guess that was implemented because of white privilege, right? How do I feel about it? I mean, it's definitely discrimination, you know? I mean, why is there a color with privilege? Why can't there be like just, I don't know, like be, you know, well, equality is what I'm trying to get at here. I mean, who likes that? I mean, I guess I have friends of multicultural. I have friends that are black, white, Hispanic, Asian, and we all joke around with each other. And you know, the white privilege thing is like, apparently it's, you know, I'm not gonna say adamant, but it is a reality that we live in, and it exists for sure. It might not exist like obviously, but it does exist, like, you know, in places you probably expect but not expect, I guess, if that makes sense. I mean, there is definitely like racial profiling, stereotyping and stuff like that. I mean, I live near the border, so definitely like a person with a brown skin will probably get pulled over more likely than an individual that's white, if that's what you're asking about white privilege or male privilege. I mean, the statistics show that men do get paid higher than women do, so it exists. And hopefully someday we'll get over that and just be like, hey, we're all human beings, we're all, you know, we all bleed red, and you know that we're all going to be paid equally, or not paid equally, but like paid by our skill and our knowledge versus like the color of my skin and what gender I am. But we are making ways towards change, and that's good. And I'm glad to see that I've witnessed and lived in an era where I can where a black president finally made it, as a black person made it as president. So I'm very proud of humanity, or America. I guess we've gone a long way, that's for sure. Well, you know, there's that battle for like 1% versus 99%, and my opinion on that is, yeah, it's true. I mean, like, the 1% of America is super rich, while 99% are struggling. The middle class is, clearly caught in the crossfire, and the more that the 1% strive, the 99% gets bigger, or the middle class joins the 99% even more. How I feel about it? I mean, like I said, it exists, and the reason it exists is because it's probably because of history. Rich people are rich for a reason, and ignore those messages because they're coming from people that want to talk to me and they don't realize that I'm recording. But you know, I mean, people that have founded this country, like way back in the day when, you know, people that discovered gold, you know, created the hotels like the Hiltons, you know, stuff like that, stuff that exists now but was started years and years ago. And they stay rich because, one, they know how to manage themselves, or at least most of them do, and they stay rich because they want to stay rich, no matter what kind of, like, you know, ethics and morals they break. it's a matter of survival to them. You know, they don't want to share the wealth, maybe because like they feel like they've worked hard for it and the other people like did not, so they don't want to just do a handout. You know, I can understand that for sure. And you know, the dominance in society is definitely like whoever has the money will be the one in control. We can see that right now in our political system. It's, you know, how much does a politician cost you, you know, so you can get what you wanted or what you want. So it's unfortunate, you know, and I've seen this multiple times happen where, you know, the people speak out and they stop a bill from happening, and all of a sudden in the middle of the night it's passed because we weren't aware that it was passed, and people have been bought out because, you know, it's money talks, that's for sure. And it's unfortunate, and I'm not saying everyone's like that, but I'm gonna say like a good amount are, because, you know, right now money is a very important thing to us, and so if that's gonna be our priority, then we'll do whatever it takes to survive. Going back to the whole, like, you know, the 1% being rich and staying rich, it's because they have the money to keep themselves rich, you know, and that's kind of how I feel about the system that we're in right now. And the more money they have, the more money you're going to be able to keep, versus the people that don't have money, that want to save it. They have to spend money in order to try to become more secure financially. It is out there, and it's unfortunate, you know, but what can you do? You can only try your best and, you know, speak up and make sure that everyone, and spread awareness. And, you know, going back to number 7, I've kind of just said that, like, I kind of observe and see what's going on and try to not be part of the problem, but to kind of contribute to the better. I'm not here to fight the rest of America or anybody that believes differently than I do, but I am here to observe and, you know, spread awareness to the people that don't understand and don't know what's happening, so that way they have a better idea of what's going on. Like, you know, the whole GMO thing, you know, I don't even think a lot of people know what GMOs are, so if they did, would they even care, you know? So, but I think people have the right to know. I mean, information is out there for us to observe, and also to keep, and also to kind of like we have the freedom and choice to whether to act upon this information. But I believe everyone has a right to know the full story, and then an individual has a right to choose whether to act or not act depending on his or her reaction. So coping with these issues, I'm grateful that I live a quite peaceful life with friends that are very understanding and open-minded. And I've never really faced any type of discrimination just because I was Asian or a male or a straight Asian male. But I do empathize with those that aren't as, you know, that are not male, not female, or not male, not straight, and is a part of a minority, you know, and they have been discriminated. It's very unfortunate, but all you can do is pretty much fight for it, you know, and spread awareness and make sure that, you know, if it doesn't happen to you, it doesn't happen to somebody else. That's for sure. Going back to the previous questions, it's good that we spread awareness to people, and that we talk about these things up front. We don't hide them. We try to get rid of like assumptions, and I think like discussions and debates and an open-minded debate and open-minded discussion, like, you know, face to face, would be good, as long as we can keep our own you know, biases and what do you call this, I guess like our own personal like emotions intact. Like if you disagree with what I say and I disagree with what you say, you know, I should respect what you have to say, listen to it, let it sink in, and be like, all right, well, that's cool that you believe that way, but I don't agree with you. And the other person that doesn't agree should always, you know, kind of hold themselves back and not be like, hey, you know what, that's messed up, you know, you're wrong for thinking that way. You know, the accusation should just halt and just listen to the other people. If you're talking, you're not really listening. So both people should just, you know, take some time to listen to each other talk, and then just kind of discuss it. And then at the end of the day, you know, you have all the information, especially information from the other side that you don't know about, and then you can go about it in any other way. and people are still trying to get a hold of me because apparently they can't live without me. Sorry about that. But anyway, I was just saying that, you know, I'm really happy that I've never really had any full front like debates or like any hateful commentary towards anybody that I know or ever encountered. I live in the Pacific Northwest right now in Bellingham, Washington, and everyone here seems to be a little bit more open-minded. It is dominantly white, but there's other cultures around here, primarily Asian, just because we're in the Pacific coast and near Canada. Vancouver, BC, British Columbia, up north has a lot of Asians, you know, from Indian, Chinese, all that stuff. And primarily in Washington, we have Vietnamese and what do you call this? Japanese. So I think this kind of conversation is, if you're comfortable with yourself, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, and you know where you stand, you know that you can accept others for who they are and what they are and other cultures, you can have this open discussion and talk about and give your opinion without any sense of like, you know, hate or biases towards other cultures. I mean, we all have bad examples, and definitely like the bad examples definitely trying to cover or kind of like hyper implement like your opinion of a race or culture. You know, if you had a bad experience with a black person, you're probably gonna stereotype black people, you know. But if you had a good experience with a black person, you'd probably stereotype them in a good way, you know. Or if someone had a bad experience and you had a good experience, you'd be like, well, I don't disagree with you, but I'm gonna have to disagree with you, man, because I hung out with so and so and they were totally fine and that didn't happen to me. So you have to like kind of like say, hey, that happened because it wasn't because he was black, it was because like he was not a good person, you know, stuff like that. So I think that is where we as human beings have to finally cross that threshold where we just go past the color of their skin. Now the color of their skin is there, and culturally we are different, and there just happens to be a color to our culture attached to that culture, you know, because we created those as colors, that we're gonna have to label ourselves towards that culture, like, you know, stereotypes, of course. It's always gonna be there, and they exist because they're true, and no one made them up. But the stereotype only means that if you stereotype everyone, then that makes you ignorant, you know. But stereotypes definitely exist, and they're there, you know, and stuff like that. Personal reactions, really, it's I'm not surprised. I mean, I love talking about culture and diversity. I live in a diverse culture. I grew up in a diverse culture. The one thing that I do like to note is that I joke around about races and stuff like that a lot, and it's not because that I hate other cultures or I even make fun of Asians. I mean because I lived in that culture and I understand. It's because that I celebrate our differences, and I love celebrating the differences that we have, because it's just like food. If everything was the same, it would be boring, you know. And you could always learn from another culture and then implement that in your own, and you can, you know, compare and contrast and learn from other people's experiences and the way they do things. I think that's magnificent. So that so just because I'm joking around about, you know, Asians and blacks and Hispanics doesn't mean I'm like, oh, I hate those guys. No, it's more because like I've seen it happen. Now I'm joking about the situation because it's ridiculous, first of all, and making light of the situation. I guess that part of comedy, that's what you have to do, you know, to make light of the situation using comedy. And I love that. I think if you can laugh at yourself, you can't take yourself way too serious, and then therefore that you can accept yourself even more so. Yes and no. No one really like comes up to me, hey, how's it feel like to be Asian, or how were you raised, like, you know. I think people are still kind of like touchy about like race, you know. And I think like if people like, now I understand if someone ignorant came up to me and was like, hey, you're Asian, you must know math, or you're good in karate. I'd be like, yeah, you're ignorant, because not everyone's like that. you know. But if someone was like, hey, what's up, man, like, and asked me like, oh, what are you, like, you're Chinese? Oh, that's cool, man, like, I've been to China, blah blah, and they start a conversation with you, and they're pretty open-minded about it, and they're not stereotyping you. But and you know, and all of a sudden, like, you kind of like get the feel that they are just being funny, they're not being like super racist or anything like that. So, and if you are gonna be kind of like joking around with me because I'm Asian, I'm gonna joke right back to you if you're, you know, Hispanic, white, black. And of course, you know, if you're gonna joke with me, you're gonna have to be able to be joked at as well. That's kind of like the give and take of comedy there. You can't just have it one way. So I don't have talks like this often. If we do, it's just social banter. And you know, my friend is Islamic, and we kind of joke around about like, oh yeah, oh, terrorists, come over here, you know, and then he makes fun of me that I'm good at math, you know, stuff like that. So it's because him and I have an understanding that those are stereotypes, and we are joking around about it. But we would probably not do that towards a stranger, you know, but since he's my friend, we joke around about our own, like, I guess, imperfections or our own stereotypes, stuff like that. So I really don't have this type of like serious talk where I have to answer 10 questions or 11 questions. It's more like if it comes up, it comes up. We just talk about it, we just joke around, stuff like that. So I hope that helps you out a little bit, Poonam, and I hope out there, guys, that you understand the way I feel about diversity in America and growing up here, being an immigrant. I am now in my late 20s, and I've been here for more than 20 years. So, and I love this place. I love the diversity. I love the people. I love the rights and freedoms that I have, and my ability to choose, and my ability to enjoy myself freely and express myself freely, especially through the internet, through my work, my art, my videos, and I hope you do too. And if you want to know anything else, you know, I will leave links on the bottom and descriptions on the bottom for you to follow me on Twitter at GQAsianDude. I have a Facebook, I also have a Tumblr, but that will be all down there in the description box. But aside from that, thanks guys, and peace be with you and everyone else out there. Okay, bye.